Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brooklynite TV Podcast. I'm your host, Frank, and today we got a big one. We're diving deep into the boxing arena with one of the most talked about questions in the world of combat sports right now. Can Mike Tyson beat Jake Paul this Friday? Can Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, beat Jake Paul, the YouTube star turned boxer? This is a fight that's captured the imaginations of fans around the world. Two big names, one legendary and one controversial, and a matchup that some are saying could be a real spectacle. But today we're going to break it all down and answer that question: can Mike Tyson get the victory in the bout with Jake Paul this Friday? We'll talk about Tyson's insane knockout power, the legendary Gus D'Amato factor, how Tyson was trained by one of the greatest minds in boxing history, and at the end of the day, why Jake Paul, the problem child, has a real problem on his hands. So let's get it on. In this podcast, we're diving deep into the case of Mike Tyson at almost 60. Can he emerge victorious in a matchup, or can Jake Paul pull off an upset? To understand why Tyson could win, we need to break down the contrasting styles, experience levels, and backgrounds of both fighters. But let's start with the basics. Mike Tyson's career accomplishments, his physical attributes, and the key factors that would make him an overwhelming favorite for me in this matchup. We'll also look at Jake Paul's rise in boxing, the fighters he's faced so far, and how his performance stacks up against someone of Mike Tyson's caliber. Mike Tyson, a legend in his own right. Born in 1966, Mike Tyson is widely regarded as one of the greatest boxers in the history of the sport. Known for his ferocious power, lightning-fast reflexes, and aggressive fighting style, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history at just 20 years old. His knockout ratio is one of the highest in the sport, with 44 of his 50 career wins coming by way of knockout. Tyson's peak years were in the late 1980s, when he was the undisputed champion. We saw him demolish some of the best fighters in the world, including Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks, and Frank Bruno. But Tyson wasn't just a force in the ring. His punching power, his technique, footwork, and head movement made him a well-rounded fighter who could adapt to different styles. He wasn't simply a brawler. He was a strategic, calculated fighter with elite-level skills. Even today in his 50s, Tyson's raw power and knowledge of the sport remains unparalleled, which is a testament to his legendary status. To emphasize just how good Tyson was, let's break down some of his key statistics. His record: 50 wins, 44 knockouts, 6 losses, 2 no contests. His knockout percentage, 88%. Championships: Tyson was the undisputed heavyweight champion, having held the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles at the same time. Prime knockout victims: Tyson defeated some of the best in the business, including Trevor Berbick, Michael Spinks, and Larry Holmes. These were top-tier fighters, with Spinks being a gold medalist and Holmes a former heavyweight champion. Tyson's ability to end fights in the blink of an eye, his unmatched speed for a heavyweight, and his level of competition made him a fighter who would have a massive edge over someone with Jake Paul's limited experience in boxing. Now to Jake Paul, a YouTuber turned boxer. Jake Paul, on the other hand, is a completely different animal. Rising to fame as a YouTuber and social media influencer, Paul transitioned to boxing in 2018, and since then he's built a reputation for himself in the sport, not necessarily for his skills, but for his ability to market and promote fights. His rise through the ranks of boxing has been controversial, as many question the legitimacy of his opponents and the quality of competition he's faced so far. To date, Jake Paul's record is 7-1, with his only loss coming in a split decision to Tommy Fury, a real boxer, a fighter who has a little more experience and training in the sport. The opponents Jake Paul's faced are, for the most part, either former MMA fighters with limited boxing experience or skills, or people who are not competitive in the world stage of boxing. Paul's victories include names like former NBA star Nate Robinson, and MMA fighters like Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley, none of whom are known for their boxing skills. So we'll break down some of Jake Paul's statistics and competition. His record: 7 wins, 1 loss, knockout percentage 57%. The quality of Jake Paul's opponents have been criticized for their lack of boxing experience. His fight with Nate Robinson, for example, was a mismatch from the start, with Robinson having little to no experience in the boxing ring. Now, Ben Askren, a former MMA fighter with elite grappling skills, had 0 boxing experience. He was handpicked by Paul. Then there's Tyron Woodley. While a formidable MMA fighter, he's also not a boxer at the professional level. Most notable defeat, a split decision loss to Tommy Fury, a professional boxer with a much more expensive background in the sport. Now, while Paul has shown some ability to box, particularly with his knockout of Robinson and his win over Woodley and Askren, it's clear that his competition hasn't been at the same level as Tyson's, nor has he faced the type of elite fighters that Mike Tyson has demolished through his career. Tyson's experience versus Paul's limited skill set. To truly assess the outcome of a potential Tyson versus Paul fight, we need to compare their respective skill sets and experience levels. Tyson's boxing IQ is elite. He has decades of experience facing fighters with varying styles, from powerful punchers to tactical boxers. He knows how to control a fight, read his opponent's movements, and exploit their weaknesses. On the other hand, Jake Paul, despite his growing fame in the boxing world, is still very much a novice when it comes to technical skills of the sport. Let's break down a few specific factors that show why Tyson would be the clear favorite in this fight. Number 1, power and punching technique. Tyson has been known for his crushing knockout power, particularly in his prime. His combination of speed, accuracy, and force make him a nightmare for any opponent. When Tyson hits, it was like a freight train. Paul, though he has knockout power, hasn't faced a true boxer who can absorb his punches and hit back with the same intensity of Mike Tyson. Tyson's power, coupled with his ability to close the distance and deliver devastating combinations, will be a problem for the problem child from the start. Number 2, speed and agility. Even in his 50s, Tyson remains quick. When he fought Roy Jones Jr. in 2020, Tyson showed flashes of his old form. Speed, head movements, and controlled intelligence. He had a good approach to the fight. In contrast, Paul's speed and agility are nowhere near the level of someone who spent years in the gym training against world-class opponents. Tyson's footwork, even at his age, would allow him to cut off the ring, close the distance, and set up punches much more effectively than Jake Paul. Number 3, ring IQ. Tyson's ability to read opponents and adjust his strategy on the fly is one of the reasons he was so dominant in his prime. He understood the ebb and flow of a boxing match in a way that Paul simply doesn't yet have the experience to comprehend. Tyson's head movement, shoulder rolls, and defense techniques are years ahead of Jake Paul's, who, despite being a capable fighter, is still learning the basics of defense in a professional content. Number 4, mental toughness. Tyson fought through adversity during his career, both in the ring and outside of it. He's faced some of the greatest names in boxing and came out on top against many of them. Paul, in contrast, has yet to face a truly high-level opponent, and when he did, in his loss to Tommy Fury, he struggled to adjust. Tyson's psychological fortitude would be a major factor. If Paul finds himself hurt or out of his depth, Tyson will capitalize on that. Quality of opponents. The gap is enormous. A key point in this debate is the massive difference in the quality of in opposition each fighter has faced. Tyson's career was marked by challenging and defeating the best fighters of his time, many of whom were multiple-time world champions. While Tyson's reign in the 1990s was full of dominance, Jake Paul's career has been largely about setting up easy matchups for himself with opponents who are far from elite in the boxing world. Tyson fought the likes of Larry Holmes, a Hall of Famer, and one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. Michael Spinks, who had an undefeated record when Tyson defeated him in just 91 seconds. In contrast, Paul's opponents, while skilled in their own fields, have not posed the same level of challenge in a boxing ring. Nate Robinson, Ben Askren, Tyrone Woodley, they're not world-class boxers by any means. Now, Tommy Fury, a young prospect, Tyson Fury's younger brother, who still has much to prove in his own right, but at least he has more professional boxing experience than Jake Paul. Now, the Gus D'Amato factor. Tyson was trained by the best of the best. D'Amato was one of the most respected figures in boxing history, shaped Mike Tyson into the fighter that he became. The importance of Gus D'Amato's psychology. Gus D'Amato was known for his focus on head movement and the peekaboo style, which became the trademark of Tyson's fighting technique. This style is a combination of rapid footwork, aggressive head movements, and lightning-fast counterpunching. It requires a fighter to be constantly moving in and moving out of range, forcing opponents to miss while simultaneously setting up their own punches. The peekaboo style also relies heavily on excellent defense skills, as the fighter keeps their hands high to protect the head and body while they move and attack. This is a major advantage that Mike Tyson holds over Jake Paul, who has not yet developed a defensively sound or sophisticated boxing style. Beyond techniques, D'Amato was instrumental in teaching Tyson a mental game of boxing. He instilled in Mike Tyson a killer instinct, a never-give-up attitude, and the ability to mentally break down opponents before they even stepped into the ring. Tyson was trained to not just be a fighter, but a thinker in the ring, to always be several steps ahead of his opponent. This boxing intelligence, the ability to read an opponent's movements and tendencies, and the ability to adjust on the fly are things Jake Paul simply has not had the time or opportunity to develop to the same degree as Mike Tyson. Moreover, D'Amato's psychological coaching extended beyond the ring. Tyson was a young and troubled boy when he first met D'Amato, but Gus transformed him into someone who believed in his own invincibility, someone who feared no opponent. This confidence was translated into Tyson's fearsome presence in the ring, which often caused opponents to crumble before the bell even rang. In addition, D'Amato taught Tyson how to control his emotions and challenge them into his performance. In contrast, Jake Paul, despite his success, has yet to show us that he's had the deep mental fortitude that a fighter like Tyson possesses. Tyson's boxing knowledge, a deep understanding of the sport. Beyond his physical attributes, Tyson's boxing knowledge is something that cannot be overstated. Under D'Amato's guidance, Tyson developed a deep understanding of not just his own capabilities, but also the strengths and weaknesses of his opponents. This knowledge goes far beyond memorizing combinations or learning a few strategies. It involves an almost intuitive sense of how to read a fighter and exploit their flaws. Tyson's boxing IQ was ahead of its time and continues to be one of the defining features of his legacy. For example, Tyson's ability to cut off the ring and trap his opponent in the corners was legendary. This is a critical skill in boxing, as it prevents the opponent from escaping and forcing them into a position where they are more likely to make mistakes. Paul, by contrast, has not yet met or been tested against an opponent with such an in-depth understanding of ring control. Tyson, with his pressure fighting style, would be able to back Paul into a corner and then deliver punishing combinations before Paul had a chance to recover. Tyson also has an excellent sense of timing. He knew when to attack, when to retreat, and when to press forward with relentless aggression. This instinctive understanding of timing is something that separated great boxers from good ones, and it's another advantage that Tyson would have over Jake Paul. Tyson could dictate the pace of the fight from the get-go, slowing things down when necessary or speeding things up when he smells blood. Paul, on the other hand, often struggles to control the tempo of his bouts and can be seen trying to force exchanges with opponents rather than letting them come to him naturally. Tyson's ability to read and adapt to an opponent is another important aspect of Tyson's boxing intelligence and his ability to adapt to different fighters. Throughout his career, Tyson faced a range of styles, from the technical skills of Larry Holmes to the power punches of Frank Bruno, and he adapted to each style effectively. His ability to recognize what his opponent was doing and then formulate a plan to neutralize their strengths was a hallmark of his success. Paul, while an improving boxer, has yet to face an opponent with the same depth of experience and versatility of Mike Tyson. Even his loss to Tommy Fury, Paul was unable to adapt when Fury started to outbox him in later rounds. Tyson, however, would have the experience and knowledge to adjust mid-fight, whether that meant challenging his defense tactics or exploiting weaknesses in Paul's game. This adaptability would be another factor that makes Mike Tyson the overwhelming favorite for me in this fight. The combination of experience, knowledge, and technique, when we combine the factors of Tyson's experience, his mental toughness, and his deep boxing knowledge, it becomes abundantly clear why Tyson would be the victor in this matchup, even at 58. His skill set, refined under the tutelage of Gus D'Amato, would be far too much for Jake Paul to handle. Tyson was trained not just to punch, but to think in the ring, to read his opponents, and to understand the science of boxing in a way that Paul has only begun to scratch the surface of. In contrast, Jake Paul, despite his boxing endeavors, remains an unrefined fighter compared to someone like Mike Tyson. When you stack up Tyson's vast experience and boxing knowledge against Paul's limited resume, it's clear that Tyson should dominate him from start to finish. So circle back to the original question. Can Mike Tyson beat Jake Paul? The answer is a resounding yes. When you compare Mike Tyson's skills, experience, and history in the ring to Jake Paul's limited boxing background and his cherry-picked competition, it becomes clear that Mike Tyson will kick the shit out of Jake Paul in this boxing match. Jake Paul, though a good athlete with decent knockout power, simply lacks the experience, technique, and ring IQ to compete with someone as formidable as Mike Tyson. Tyson's boxing knowledge, developed over the years of hard-fought wars against the world's best, would outclass Paul's fledgling understanding of the sport. Paul's limited experience and lack of truly high-level opponents in his career so far make him an easy target for a seasoned veteran like Mike Tyson. While Paul has shown some promise in the ring, there's simply no comparison when it comes to the depth of Tyson's skill set and the quality of his past opponents. Mike Tyson is a once-in-a-generation fighter who was trained by one of the greatest boxing minds in history. Jake Paul, despite his accomplishments, has a long way to go before he could ever be considered to be a serious threat to someone of Mike Tyson's stature. Simply put, Mike Tyson, with all his experience and boxing knowledge, will dominate Jake Paul this Friday, and the outcome will not even be close. So, conclusion, Tyson wins no contest. So again, to answer the question, can Mike Tyson beat Jake Paul? The answer is undoubtedly yes. So my prediction, Mike Tyson knocks out Jake Paul by round 3 end. My final answer. That's a glove wrap for today, good people. I hope Mike and Jake have a great fight. So remember, if you can, to like, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode if you found the content interesting. It helps me to continue talking about this type of content, and I really appreciate the support. Until next time, remember, no matter how big your opponent is, the tallest man is always the last man standing. See you all next time. This is Brooklynite TV, and I'm Frank. Thanks for watching.